It is almost time, my Halloween fans. We are mere days away from watching the end of a timeline with Halloween Ends. And because it is the Spooky Mama month and we got a new Michael Myers movie to celebrate, the last one we'll get for a couple of years, we gotta make this feeling last. I know I've been getting into the holiday season prepping for it. Just look what I did to a pumpkin the other day. Props to you if you can guess what it is, because I tried, man. I really tried. But what exactly I wanted to do here in this video to get us in the mood talking about Michael Myers, celebrating us as fans, because this is a joyous occasion. I thought I'd ponder the question and ask which Michael Myers has had the best motive for why he does what he does, which essentially is stabbing some peeps. I've gathered up what I think are the 4 main motives for Michael Myers throughout all his different timelines, all his different movies, talking about the pros and cons of each one, and then just coming to a determination which is the best, which is the worst, and I want to hear from you guys. I know some of y'all are going to be like, it's not even a debate, why are we talking about this? But there's people out there walking with Colt of Thorn tattoos, so try telling that to them. As well as what your preferred motive is for Michael Myers, your reasoning behind it, and which one you think just doesn't work. And as a disclaimer, while doing this list, I'm not particularly looking at the movies themselves or the timelines, more just the motive and information that were given in the movies. Once I actually see Halloween Ends this week, I'll be doing a separate video where we look at the different timelines, and from there we'll actually take the movies into account, along with their protagonists, the kills, just what was a more enjoyable series regardless of the motive. But for now, let's get started with the first motive.
Tonight's brutal murders was described by police as Manson-like in its viciousness. A 10-year-old boy being held in custody.
Who would have thought years after 1978, when Michael Myers was created, we'd eventually get to a point where a reboot would have the motive for Michael be, my parents didn't love me enough. Talk about getting relatable, am I right, guys? Now, obviously, I'm oversimplifying it, but essentially that is the motive for the Rob Zombie Halloween version of Michael Myers. They went for a realistic approach, basically the Batman Begins Christopher Nolan of the Michael Myers movies, where they said, what if Michael Myers was brought up the same way our traditional slashers in real life are brought up, through a traumatic childhood of some not good parents, horrible environment, and following the steps that almost every real-life serial killer does, down to ending the lives of sweet little animals. Now, this was a messed up way to go, and I also think it'll be the one most of us agree will be at the bottom of our list. It's so interesting that in our real world, we could be so fascinated with like true crime podcasts or like the Jeffrey Dahmer show on Netflix that like top the charts and everyone was talking about. I think we've all gone through that phase when we're 12 and we have a computer after we get past the pornography. We're like, let me look up some of the sickest people that ever lived. And we just study them like they're Abraham Lincoln or something. Yet if they give that same backstory though to one of our horror icons like Michael Myers, people tend to reject it. As far as a motive goes, it is one that works. I mean, we literally have a consistent pattern with a lot of these real life people, so you can't say it's not a realistic one. But I think there is something weird about then turning Michael Myers into someone who was bullied, was pushed around, seeing what he was like as a child, and then knowing what he's eventually supposed to become once he puts on the white mask. It's a separation we almost can't make, and is probably why we prefer our made up people to have made up backstories. Still, I give them props for attempting it.
According to Celtic legend, one child from each tribe was chosen to be inflicted with the curse of Thorn.
The next one on my list, I had it very high on my list, and I was gonna give some real credit to them people who tattoo that Colt of Thorn on them, but there is just one glaring issue with this motive that I just cannot get past, putting it close to the bottom of my list. By the time we got to the later original Halloween sequels with Halloween 5 and Halloween 6, Curse of Michael Myers, the creative team at that time decided it was time to give a definitive answer to why Michael Myers is the way he is, for not only why he kills, how he's so indestructible, why he comes out on certain Halloweens, and well, for the most part, I don't think it's that bad of an explanation. The Cult of Thorn is a society of people who every now and then select one child to be turned evil, having that one child grow up in a family that he'll eventually kill one by one, sacrificing that family's blood so this cult can live forever. And it's in the specific cult using the thorn symbol that appears as a constellation in the sky that lets you know whenever Michael Myers is going to appear, explaining some of the erratic years that he shows up. He'll show up one Halloween, then 3 Halloweens later he'll show up again, because that's when the constellation is in the sky. As part of this ritual, whenever they select a child, that person will also become very indestructible, which lets us know why he can withstand so much pain and damage from his victims. All of that is a pretty fine explanation, and it does answer a lot of the mysterious questions questions about Michael Myers, but then there's the problem in itself, one that does ruin a lot of the mystery about Michael Myers. Some would argue the most fascinating thing about Michael is the unknown, is not knowing why he does the things he does. It's not really giving us an explanation why you can go ahead and stab him, shoot him, beat him up, and he'll still walk on for another sequel. But to me, that's not even the issue I have with this motive. The main issue I have is this one then turns Michael Myers into a henchman. Essentially, we reduce this evil, destructive, immortal being into just someone's lackey so that they can continue living for whatever purpose. We're limited to what information we were given in the sequels, and since at that point, that's when that timeline ended, we didn't really get to know much about that cult and why they were doing it. But to me, just making Michael Myers basically a minion makes him a lot less scary to me. Sure, he's someone in the back of your pocket that you can always throw out there, but then that's the person I should be afraid of, not this guy. Still though, the Thorn motivation explains so much about why he is the way he is.
Dr. Loomis, please listen to me. There's a file on Michael Myers that nobody knew about.
I've seen everything.
No, that girl, that Strode girl, that's Michael Myers' sister.
Next motivation, look, I'm not gonna lie, this is my channel, this is my video, I'm gonna be biased. I like me the family motive. Some might be aware, but after the first Halloween movie, John Carpenter, the creator, had no interest to go back to Michael Myers and continue his story. But after some convincing and large sums of money, of course he came back and was forced to come up with more story, giving us a reason to why he was chasing down Laurie Strode, making them siblings in the process. It'd be an effective decision that would basically change the way we perceive Michael Myers. And even later on, when they would reboot timelines like the current one we have now and erase that motivation as them as siblings entirely, I think Michael Myers being someone who's so sick in the head that just wants to off his entire family, even from the ripe age of freaking 6 years old, that is terrifying. I feel like you could even throw in a slight hint of that unknown motive into the family motive, because before we got to the Cult of Thorns stuff and they explained that it was part of a blood sacrifice, when that was never really the intention, they just had to come up with something, sequel after sequel after sequel. I think it's just as terrifying as to know that you have a long lost sibling out there that is going to hunt you down no matter what, and is going to take out as many people around you just to get to you. It also gives us a great reason to have a protagonist to follow throughout the series, and I feel like that's what sometimes is needed in these slasher movies, is a good protagonist to be a challenge for our antagonist. And while I really loved Laurie Strode, I also really grew to like Jamie Lloyd as a character and was so upset when in later sequels they killed her off. As part of this theory, I'm even going to go with the Halloween 4 ending and say that it's something genetic or something in their blood that carries this evil gene, because I really dig that ending where the evil was then transferred to Jamie Lloyd and she was going to continue the kill spree, sharing that blood of Michael Myers. Now that's of course where we're getting into some theory territory, and even the movies got rid of that. Take it. So I can totally understand some people putting the Cult of Thorn theory over the family theory, but to me, I think it'd be terrifying if one day I found out I had a brother or an uncle out there that just wants to get rid of me for no reason.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes. I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Of course, bringing us to the preferred theory that'll just remain number one at the top of the list: no motive. Even the no motive I think just doesn't work all the time and really only works in the 1978 Halloween movie. Because the idea behind Michael Myers, right, is that he's this evil being with just the blackest eyes, pure evil, someone that needs to be stopped. But I feel there are moments in this current timeline that is using the motivation of no motive to be the reasoning behind Michael Myers doing what he does, but at sometimes we see Michael decides not to kill. I'm not saying I want to see it happen, but when I saw Michael Myers not end the life of that baby in 2018, it made me look at him differently, made me go, is he pure evil, is he not? Because I would think pure evil would not take a second and would just smack that baby out the window. But I guess at the same time, that just makes you just as much to be a victim, because while with the last motive, the family member, you have to be related to Michael, or at least be somewhere near his bloodline for you to become one of his victims. Here, I think it's a scary thought that you could just be chilling at home watching TV, Michael shows up in your kitchen and just starts slashing. And ultimately, that'll always be pretty frightening. Then again, I'm saying all this without knowing how Halloween ends. So for all I know, in that timeline, they could give us another explanation for why Michael is the way he is. But until we see that movie, these have just been my thoughts on what I think of every single one of Michael Myers' motives. I'm really going to be curious to see what you guys prefer the motive to be, or if you guys could come up with a whole brand new one. I tried covering all the bases from the different timelines, and then even when we finally see Halloween Ends, I'll be making a separate video talking about which has been the best timeline for Michael Myers, and that'll be the movie where I actually look at the sequels, the protagonists, the kills, what was more enjoyable as a series, regardless of the motive. Thank you guys for watching. Don't be forgetting to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter at 3CFilms or on TikTok at 3CFilms. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.